Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us live. This is the Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Sean Phillips, and I am joined alongside my two lovely co-hosts, Mr. Andy Van Beber and Travis Kirkendall. Gentlemen, how are you two doing this evening?
What's going on?
Outstanding.
I'm better than I was Friday night. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, you had like a stomach bug or something, right?
Oh my God. I thought I was on the edge of death. I've never, not to give too much information, but I've never thrown up that much in my life.
Oof. What'd you eat?
So this was like round two of the COVID shot? Or
no, this was a good old fashioned bug that was sent to me by my son. So
that's where it starts.
Well, it was going around school. I mean, it made it around school like crazy fast. And I was just like,
are you sure it wasn't a COVID variant?
Yes, I'm very positive because I can actually I can hold down water now. So yes.
Whenever Tony and I took our daughter to daycare, the first week she was there, she caught this bug. And when I say like we were out of commission for like 72 hours, I mean, it hurt to walk. It hurt to, I threw up so many times. Like it was one of the worst bugs I'd ever had, and it like ran through. It was so quick, and so I hope that's not what you had to experience, but it sounds like that's just about what you guys
it was miserable.
Had gotten.
It was totally miserable. I couldn't. I mean, I called my wife. Sometimes she has insomnia, and she said, I called her from the living room. I said, you need to come in here because I thought I was going to die. I was just like, holy crap.
Do you think that in the next couple of years we're going to have another COVID-like incident with another type of strain, whether it's another type of COVID strain or whether it's another illness or virus that runs rampant? Do you think that this is going to become a regular occurring thing, or do you think this was kind of like a once in a lifetime kind of crazy?
I don't know. I tell you what, I had never felt. I mean, it was just. I've never in my life been where I can't hold down water. Whenever I have a stomach bug, if I want to say, okay, I need just, because I try to stay hydrated, and I can always usually, have some water, and I could not. I mean, every time I tried to drink something, 3 minutes later, here it comes, and I was just like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
Mm. So, yeah,
it's brutal.
That's about what we were dealing with at our place. Like, I thought the moment you thought you might be okay, you would try, and then it would just come right back up. Well, other than that, you guys have a pretty good weekend overall.
Mm-hmm. And we're already joined.
Good deal.
We're already joined by Chewy this evening. How about that?
I told Chewy to give tonight a listen. I said we've got some good stuff for him. He's a big fan of the kind of things we're going to be talking about tonight. So I'm actually pretty excited for him. Yeah.
Tell him to comment in. I'd like to have a conversation as we're doing it.
Of course.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Oh.
I did want to start with a quick story before I kind of hand it over to you, Travis and Andy, because I know you guys are going to talk about something. But did you guys see what the Lake of the Ozarks was in the media about this past week?
No, I didn't.
No.
So the Lake of the Ozarks, it trends every so often. Every blue moon, the Lake of the Ozarks makes the headlines nationally for this. Recently because of COVID, all the bars were open and right. People kind of flocked to it, made the news. However, it's going viral this week because of a video that surfaced of a bar from the Lake of the Ozarks at Osage Beach. It was the Loto Lounge, L-O-T-O Lounge, where a bartender went on about a 5-minute rant, yelling, cussing, and throwing some incredibly insulting things at some military service members, all because he said that their military ID that they presented to him was fake. And went on this so he just doesn't understand military. His argument, well, he's a bartender, so he checks IDs. Well, and here's the caveat, I guess I'll add. He wasn't actually an employee of this bar. He was like a family friend that stepped behind the bar to help out while the bartender was away, is what I've gathered from the story that has come out since then, which in a week, mind you, this video on Facebook got over 4 million reactions on Facebook and 350,000 on TikTok. So
Oh wow.
it might be a hard time for the bar. But his argument was that if it was a real ID on military IDs, because for those that don't know, military IDs, they're made in what's called a deer's office, which can be, as simple as I've seen them at armories, I've seen them on post, but they're printed out using a laminate machine. So his argument was because there was like a peel offable sticker on the ID that it made it not real. So he took the service member's ID, bent it and ripped, broke it, and was like, that's fake, threw it away. Yeah, and so the soldiers were like, well, we can't leave without that because it's technically government property. And he was just going off on them, telling them that soldiers haven't done anything important since World War II, and that he's glad that he said, I'm glad that you think you can do more push-ups than me. Yeah, you're a real hard ass because you can do more push-ups than me, kind of deal. Yeah, not a good look. And then he said, because I'm assuming these soldiers were at the Lake of the Ozarks for something. I'm not even sure. They might have been guard soldiers. Doesn't actually say what they were doing. I'm not sure if they were there from Fort Leonard Wood, but they said they were working at the Lake of the Ozarks. That's why they were there. It might have been COVID relief. It literally could have been they were at the Lake of the Ozarks for like a weekend retreat. Those are things that, sometimes units have, is they have meetings elsewhere. And he's like, is there some top secret shit happening at the Lake of the Ozarks? No, get the F out of here. Just kept blowing up on him. And they're like, well, we can't leave till he gets his ID because he has to be able to get back onto post.
Yeah, you can't even get back on base without it.
And his argument, he's like, well, call some government officials so they can verify if it's a real. It was just a big mess, and now it looks like the Lake of the Ozark once again made USA Today, and so you'll love to see
that bar probably is never going to see the light of day of any customers ever again.
It's going to be pretty interesting. I know some folks that I work with that live down there in the Lake of the Ozarks, so I'm actually going to show them this and kind of get their take and see what they think about it, because
if they haven't heard of it,
not a good look for especially coming up on the summer season, man, where what gets me is this was not even an employee of the bar, but the other big getter is like, I don't think this individual will realize how many soldiers come from Fort Leonard Wood to the lake during the summer, during pass. I mean, a lot of military service members go to the lake, and unfortunately for this bar, it looks like they are probably going to lose out on a lot of business, because you guys know, I know, Travis to speak for it, especially, service members talk about where they're treated well and where they're not treated well.
Right.
And so it's this one's definitely going to be.
Well, especially when it goes viral all over the internet, millions of views.
Yeah, once you make it on TikTok, you've made it, man. That's
fantastic.
So we need to start putting skits on TikTok. Is what you're saying?
Exactly what I'm saying.
We do advertise.
Andy, for that?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, right. TikTok only fans at the end of the day. As long as we're getting paid, that's all I really care about. So,
I'm for it.
I wanted to pass it along to you, Travis. You had shared a video, and I know we're going to talk to Annie and get a little bit of insight. Want to get the gist of it. It was a gentleman, a teacher, I do believe, that was making some feelings and thoughts heard to his school board. So I'm gonna pass it along to you and get your take on the story.
Yeah. So I had seen this this post. I think it was on Facebook is where I originally saw it, and it was a video of this teacher. And the title of the video is literally probably gonna butcher the name of the town. Grosse Point. It's a city in Michigan. Teacher roast Board of Education and intense resignation speech. And he literally does roast this Board of Education and just goes off. And what really caught my attention with this is in my opinion, what I've seen, and V, I would love to get your take on this when I'm finished, is I think there's been a lot of frustration from teachers nationwide with curriculum, the board of educators who are wherever they're at, um, some of the new policies and things like that, and even COVID. I mean, I know here in Chicago, there was a huge issue with the teachers union and the city on going back to school and all
Right.
this stuff. And I mean, they were doing the strikes and everything. But this video, I encourage everyone to check it out. I mean, it's just he just goes off, and there was one point, and there was someone that commented this as well, where towards the end of his speech, and he's finishing up, the only comment he gets from this board is, "That's 3 minutes. You're done.
Your time is up.
That's 3 minutes.
Oh.
Your time's
Yep.
up. That's 3
Yep.
minutes." That's the only feedback he even got from them.
Right.
And he says at the end, how many more of us need to leave before you get it, before you finally understand it? And he gets into details of like his frustrations with it, but I think he speaks on behalf of a lot more than just himself. I think this is a nationwide issue that, let's just say how it is. Teachers are underpaid for what they do. They're underpaid. I don't think quite they're really respected from the people they're not trusted from the people who are supposed to give them the curriculum. I don't know, Andy, maybe you could talk a little bit more on this.
Well,
I know you discussed that, you have a good board of educators that you work with.
And I liked his comment. The other thing that he was addressing in this video, and you guys have got to check this. We'll post it up on the page here in a little bit. He was talking about last year we had what's called professional development days, and he was talking about, and every school has to do this. I mean, it's pretty much standard government procedure now, where at the beginning of every school year we have to go through our active shooter stuff,
Yeah, right.
And so what we end up doing, and so this guy was talking about how they were doing their active shooter drill, and they were being talked to by paramedics about, okay, how to triage kids in their room if they have a kid who's shot. Okay, you need to be able. And this teacher says, you told us, somebody who we've never had any medical training, and you're telling us that we have to triage. Okay, this kid's not worth trying to save anymore. This kid's not, but yet this kid over here, we need to devote more attention to this kid. And I thought that was, and then he said, but yet you guys will not trust me. He said, I'm an expert. And he wasn't doing it to be braggadocious. He says, I'm an expert when it comes to matters of curriculum and how kids learn and what they need to do and what we need to teach. But you won't listen to me on that, but you expect to listen to me on, it's like, I've never had any medical training in my life, and I can say this, I don't have to get brownie points or anything. I'm going to be 25 years in next year, but I mean, I'm blessed by where I teach at. Clopton School District it's a different kind of district. I mean, we have administrators who get it. We have a school board that gets it, and they know how, when I go to a meeting when my principal, he drops in. You guys have known Loggeman for years. He drops in rooms all the time. It's not a strange thing to see Mr. Loggeman poke his head in and just say, hey, don't mind me. And nobody thinks and some of the kids will even joke around with him. Hey, Loggeman, blah, blah, blah. You guys will not and, every year that I've taught there, and this is going to be, next year will be year number 19 that I've taught at Clopton. Every year, Larry starts out every year with the same speech. I will back you up with whatever you do. Just don't do anything that I can't back you up with. And in my 18 years, I've only been called down on the carpet twice by Mr. Loggeman. And I totally was in the wrong. I know I was in the wrong. He called me out two times. And we addressed it. He was professional about it. I was professional about it. We addressed it. Done. If we have an issue about curriculum, the board listens to us. Well, what do you think? What do you guys think? And then whenever we get this stuff that comes down from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we look at it with a realistic eye. there have been programs that have come back and forth. Uh, I'll just when you guys were in school, you guys were at the tail end of No Child Left Behind. No Child Left
Mm.
Behind was the brainchild of Laura Bush back in 2000. I want to say 2004. And the idea behind No Child
Laura
Left
Bush
Behind
killed a
was
guy.
that by the year 2015, we would be at 100% students being able to read with a proficient level of comprehension and understanding and testing. 100%. No child left behind. Now, realistically, that's impossible.
Yes.
You don't want to leave any child behind. I know I work with a great bunch of teachers that pour everything into what they do, and there are some kids who just don't want to be at school. They don't give a rip about your test. You can try every set. They give us every strategy in the book. Our education classes, all these seminars. I'll try this new interesting little thing that no. The thing that works is the wheel's never been broke. You either are, a person who can connect with kids, or you're not. If you can't connect with kids, it doesn't matter if you come out there with, Lord of the Rings outfit to talk about the Middle Ages or whatever. You're not going to get kids' attentions. Okay, you're not going to.
No.
I mean, it's how you converse with kids, how you react with kids, and if kids know that you believe in them, they're going to listen to you. And you've got to have a board that's going to be willing to back you up. And this guy, I mean, this is par for the course. This what this guy said is par for the course for big schools. We actually I'll share the name with you guys later on, but one of your guys' close friend's sister is going to come to work for Clopton Schools next year as a fourth or fifth grade teacher, and she's been teaching at Troy. And she's going to be our English teacher. She's going to be another one of our English teachers. And Loggeman asked her, he said, "You're coming from Troy. You're going to take a pay cut to come to Clopton. Why are you leaving Troy?" Because she had, I mean, every one of her references were just glowing. Her principal didn't want to lose her, all this stuff. She's like, "I don't have a board that backs me. I don't have administrators that back me. I have disrespectful kids. I can't develop a personal relationship with kids." And I think that's just what it is. I mean, schools are growing, class sizes are growing, and
Yeah.
it's hard for these small rural districts to keep up. And so what do you end up with? You get these big consolidated school districts that come together, and they can offer, "Oh, look at all this great stuff that we can offer. We can offer this class and this elective and that elective." But you have no connection with the kids. There's no, when I student taught at Hannibal, I see my kids that 1 hour, and Hannibal has 2,500 kids in the high school, right? And I'm not going to see that kid for the rest of the day. Whereas where I'm at Clopton, a kid will come and talk to me. "Hey, Via, hey, let's step into Mr. Logham's office. Can I talk to you for a second?" "Sure." And I think that's what's happening with education. The more they try to reinvent the wheel, the worse it gets.
Yeah, and I think his
Uh-oh.
his rant.
Hold on a second.
Really,
I think I just lost you guys in my headphone there. Keep on talking, Travis.
I said I was going back to his rant specifically, and I think that really displays that, like, hey, this agenda, this this lack of trust in us to do our job, it's affecting. It's not just affecting us as the teachers, but I think it's affecting the students and the quality of the education that they're getting. And again, I don't think teachers get paid enough to do what they do. I mean, at all. And going back to the thing too, if there's students that just don't want to be there, they don't want to learn. How do I know this? I was one of them. I hated school. I absolutely hated it. But that's the challenge of a teacher. How do you get the interest and get the engagement and the buy-in from the student? And Yeah, I encourage everybody to listen to this guy's rant. I mean, you feel for him, and I mean, just the ending of that board director saying that's 3 minutes. That's 3 minutes.
And
That's
I've
God.
even
That was so cold.
I've even talked to students at like a lot of the schools that I've been going into, and I can see definitely where in the schools where administration and the board actually, like, you could tell has the teachers' backs versus doesn't have the teachers' backs versus what happens in these schools. I mean, I kid you not, I went for a lunch visit at one school and there were like 3 fights in the junior high to high school in that lunch period, not in where I was, but just throughout the day. And I mean, and I asked, is that a regular occurring thing? They're like, all the time. It happens all the time. And I think that might be becoming more of a problem in some places. And I mean, I know of a school in my district alone where they're one of those schools that it's all kind of in the same place like us, elementary through senior, but of some of their staff and administration, 20 staff members are leaving the school district at the end of this year.
Oh, I believe it.
20. And it comes down to a lot of them are resigning, retiring early, or transferring to another school just because of how the administration is.
What district is that again, Sean? I'm sorry.
I don't want to name drop the district because I've still got to work there. So,
yeah. Well, and
but no, and
what's sad about it?
I was just gonna say, like, I walked into. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's sad about it at the end of the day is teachers really feel like they're outnumbered.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because it's them against the school board. It's them against the parents. It's them against the students. And it's just them, And that's an issue I think that needs to be addressed by somebody way above my pay grade, obviously, but I mean, and we're wondering why we have so many young teachers who are leaving the profession. So
quickly, like, they are dead set on becoming a teacher, and then within a year or two, they're like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a lot recently. And there's the big thing for a lot of teachers that I think a lot of them take for granted, especially younger teachers. Like, you've experienced it firsthand, hand and foot, but especially nowadays. And I sound like such an old guy, but I think it just gets worse and worse each year, where parents at home are relying on teachers to do the parenting for them.
Exactly.
And it shows a lot, especially like in some of those elementary, for a lot of those elementary students. I've talked to elementary school teachers, that were friends of mine that are now teachers, and they're like, you can tell who has, two parents that care. You can tell when there's one parent that cares, and then you can tell where there's not any parent that cares, and it shows in those students. And
your district,
and then
your district.
No, and I was just gonna say, and you see it with like those students as they get older. There's more issues, but also, let's say if there's a kid that's struggling, but let's say if he or her is just so rambunctious in class, and it's a lot for one teacher to try to rope them in. And the second that teacher reaches out to the parents, like, hey, is there a little bit more we can do at home? That can kind of help. No, that's not my job. You're the one that's, getting paid to teach him. Or the parents aren't answering the phone. The parents aren't showing up to parent-teacher conferences, or the minute they do, it's like, so why is my kid failing? All these things.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
and that's going to be
good question.
And that's the beast that haunts us forever. I'll just say this real quick, and then we can move on to another topic if you guys like. I resigned 6 years into my first job. I actually, and I won't go into a lot of details about this, but I resigned halfway through the school year. I'd had a student who had made a comment about me that was not true, and my administrator was not willing to back me, and I just said, she's like, well, we're going to do this investigation, and then I just like, I'll save you the time. And my we don't have a union. Missouri teachers have what's called the Missouri State Teachers Association, and my union or my representative said, do not resign. She said, you'll win this. We can fight this. I was like, they don't want me. They don't. I have a kid and basically it was a student who one of the social kids who I gave a bad grade to because she just didn't do her homework and didn't do her stuff, and her dad was big in the community, and they were going to have my job, and I got out of it, and I was out of it, and I went to work in a factory, and it sucked. Working in a factory sucked, and
yes, it does.
Been there,
and
been there, yeah.
And I just said, I've had my fill, and then lo and behold, one of my friends down in Bloomfield, he was one of my good friends, worked at the local ambulance. He was the ambulance service director, and his dad was on the school board up at Clopton, and his dad was just telling him the story about how they were in a pickle because they had a history teacher who left 2 weeks before the school year started, and they were in a pickle. And he's like, do you know of anybody? And he's like, my buddy's like, yeah, actually I do. And he called me up, and I'm like, dude, I so do not want to go. He's like, oh, no. He said, Clopton's different. Really, it's going to be. He said, trust me on this. I graduated from there, blah, blah, blah. You'll love it. It's like, all right. And so I went up for the interview, and,
The rest, they say, is
Here
history.
you are.
Yep.
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 Hey.
Awesome.
Well,
Open up,
history.
Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
History.
All right,
Yeah.
Sean.
History.
Open up on us, Sean. Let's have it. Everybody's waiting for it.
All right. So today, folks, one thing I wanted to talk about, just because we had, kind of had some plans, things got shuffled, but I thought we'd make this one a little bit interesting. I'm going to kind of throw some little tidbits or some things at the guys and hear what they have to say. If there's anything that, kind of interests you guys, please leave a comment below, and we'd love to get you engaged and involved in the conversation. But I wanted to bring up just a couple of things really quick before I dive deep into the main part about it. But I found this lovely thing that I wanted to share. Do you guys know who J. Edgar Hoover was?
Of course.
Yes.
Does the name ring a bell?
First director of the FBI.
Yes.
A director of the FBI who, behind closed doors, loved to wear women's underwear and high heels.
Yep.
Hey, at the end of the day, that's his gag. He could do that as much as he wanted. However, the real controversy around J. Edgar Hoover comes with a lot of the secret projects that the FBI conducted and did during his time as director. Have you guys ever heard of the program? It was a counterintelligence program called Cointelpro.
No.
So this was a counterintelligence program that the FBI created and kept under wraps. And the purpose of it was to infiltrate and survey to discredit American political groups that it deemed subversive. The main one that I would like to bring to attention, or the main individual that the government, or J. Edgar Hoover, tried to infiltrate and tried to get in trouble and pull out of the limelight, was a young gentleman you guys might know by the name of Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes, I actually have heard.
This was
I didn't know it was Cointelpro, but I have heard about this. Go ahead.
Yes, so they harassed numerous political groups and did all kinds of things, made them paranoid. Really, infiltrated these groups. This was an FBI program, but here's the thing: it wasn't just communists. Like J. Edgar Hoover didn't go just against communists or typical left leanings. But again, public enemy number one was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. by the FBI. Okay, during literally had his hotel rooms bugged. Mm-hmm. He was followed. At one point, allegedly tried to break up his marriage, and even had an FBI members. And this is not a conspiracy. This is a report that actually came out, is public knowledge now, sent him anonymous letters trying to convince him to kill himself. So
Oh my God.
it was yes, and see, and that was really, it was actually found out because documents were exposed after an FBI field office was broken into in 1971. Is actually where intel documents and records of all these incidents, basically they had documentation of like, okay, this is what we did on this day for this suspect, and it was all listed of the daily activities and logs of what they were trying to do to break up the civil rights movement. That was the FBI. There was a little incident where during the Cold War, U.S. military leaders had a plan to kill innocent people and blame it on Cuba. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. So I'll read this off here. 90 miles from Florida coast, considered a serious threat during the Cold War, communist Cuba under its leader Fidel Castro was a problem for the United States. The U.S. tried to oust Castro with a little thing you guys know as the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. However, as you guys both know, that operation failed, which they came up with another plan called Operation Northwoods. And to make it very clear, this was a real plan that military service members and leaders, I'll put it that way, the Joint Chief of Staff that were appointed to President Kennedy, the Defense Secretary, Mr. Robert McNamara. Yes, this was going to take place in 1962. However, it was civilian leadership that rejected the strikes that would have actually gone off and killed civilians. This was undisclosed for 40 years before things were declassified. So another, my favorite one that I kind of want to talk about really quickly. Have any of you guys heard of the program MK Ultra?
That sounds familiar, but enlighten me. I know I've heard of it.
So this is one of my, I say favorite just because it's so crazy to me that this was something that actually happened in the United States for 2 decades. 2 decades between 1953 and 1973. So this was when the CIA conducted actual mind control experiments on unwanted U.S. and Canadian citizens.
Yes.
Some of which were lethal. Some of these were actual people died.
Yes.
So, yes. So
didn't they based a
so
movie,
to give
they based a movie off of that. The Men Who Stare at Goats. Yes. Yes. Men Who Stare at Goats.
So during the program, the CIA established front companies to work with 80 other institutions like hospitals, prisons, and universities. Prisons were a huge one, and hospitals. With the partnerships in place, the agency then ran experiments on subjects using drugs, hypnosis, and verbal and physical abuse. Another series that's kind of way spun off there, but is actually loosely based off incidents that happened during MK Ultra, is a little show called Stranger Things. And mostly it's the first season where the children, all those experiments and stuff are done on them. Yeah. But yeah, to really dive deep into like MK Ultra would be several podcasts on its own. But there's a couple just like interesting things that I do kind of want to talk about. This MK Ultra was a thing, basically was kind of a plan to train sleeper agents. That was kind of like the sci-fi thing that was believed that people could do, was literally create
the Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, to create sleeper agents to send into places like Russia. Mind you, like I said, this took place from 1953 to 1973, and MK Ultra wasn't even brought into the public's knowledge until 1975, 2 years after the project had ended. part of these experiments involved heavily dosing test subjects with hallucinogens and making them take copious amounts of LSD.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys know anyone that regularly trips acid, but imagine being strapped down and continuously forced to take LSD drugs like acid, and then all while that's happening, you're trying to be trained to become like a sleeper agent spy for the CIA. Even if you were just like a prisoner or an individual that was like in a hospital that just so happened to like, and here's the thing, some of them were voluntary sign up experimentations that people did. Others did not know what they were doing. Okay. But here's where this is an interesting little fact about MK Ultra. Does anyone, my favorite little individual that was involved with the MK Ultra program who was a test subject, does the name Ted Kaczynski ring a bell to either of you two?
Oh, jeez. You're going to go there. Okay. Unabomber.
Enlighten me.
Unabomber.
Ted Kaczynski, otherwise known as the Unabomber, was an MK Ultra test subject.
Shut up. Oh my gosh.
True fact. So the reason why I bring that up is again, we go out of right field and we really talk about the people that are into the conspiracies of, did the CIA create the Unabomber specifically for like those activities?
Well,
did they do it? No, probably not. However, some of the experiments and some of the things, because if you guys don't know much about the Unabomber, one of his more he was kind of famously known as, you know, like the anti-tech guy, and went off into the woods and went crazy. That's where you know, he had his little woodshed was where he lived and where he did all of his plottings, because he went crazy. Now, whether or not that was done because of the experimentations of MK Ultra, I'm not going to say that that was the reason, but I'm definitely not going to say that it didn't help play a part in it regardless. Now, reason why I bring up these things.
Can I throw?
Go ahead, please.
Can I throw one more name out there that you? I hope I'm not stepping on another one of your.
No, please,
people.
please.
But and you mentioned MK Ultra, and I just tapped on something that I thought I remembered hearing MK Ultra about, was the guy who killed Bobby Kennedy, and that was Sirhan Sirhan. And he was the guy who still to this day, Sirhan Sirhan is still alive, and he's been up for parole multiple times, and still to this day denies knowing anything. He still claims that he came to after putting the, you know, he shot Bobby Kennedy point blank. Bobby Kennedy died in the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, California, and Sirhan Sirhan was nothing more pretty much than just a busboy there, and Sirhan Sirhan said he was just, when they interviewed him, the police just said this guy, I mean, Sirhan Sirhan was relaxed, he was composed, he was like, look, I don't know why I'm here. And there's been a lot of people who've written books about Sirhan Sirhan being a test subject of MK Ultra because he fits all of these. And the more you talked about this, the more just like, okay, that's the program. And I just looked, and it was the guy. Trying to think the guy who wrote the book about it. There's a book out there, but they put in, this guy. Oh, now they got. Yeah, but they claim that, you know, he's, you know, I mentioned the Manchurian Candidate. That was a movie that was by, oh God, I can't think of the guy's name right now, but back in the 70s, and that movie was all about these guys these troops who came back from the Korean War and who were basically prisoners of war by the Chinese and who were trained to be, you know, sleeper agents. And when you heard a trigger word, you would be, you know, you would go and kill somebody. And that's it's I mean there are some really next level stuff that is just out. Alan,
yes, one of the
The guy who wrote,
ugly truths of the Cold War era was the sheer amount of human experimentation from both sides is actually pretty substantial. A pretty common knowledge fact is the United States brought substantial amounts of German Nazi scientists to the United States
yeah,
after World War II.
a surprising amount. Surprising amount.
Not just individuals that helped with the space race. That was a big chunk. However, there were a lot of these same exact scientists that conducted thousands of human experimentation tests and theories on Jewish prisoners,
concentration camps,
in places like in concentration camps. Okay, so this was not new, and this was not new to a lot of them. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about those specific things were because I wanted to get your guys' idea, because we obviously know that there are, classified files. There are things that, we're not allowed to, know. And this is conspiracy theories out the window. But I just based off your guys' knowledge, how many really big things do you think there are out there? And it could be about other countries. It could be about government official secrets. But do you think that there is some serious world-changing news that our government knows about that they're keeping from us? Just based off your guys' opinion, I'd like to. Do you think that they're holding that kind of information?
I have been. There's stuff that I've tapped into for a long time. My biggest, growing up and in college, of course, one of my, even though he was, I love JFK. My dad hated JFK, but I love JFK. I love studying JFK. I love what he did for civil rights. I love what he did in the fight in the Cold War, and how he stood up to the communists in Cuba. How he, how we're still all alive right now because of some steps that he took in October of '63 to keep us from going to nuclear war. But when you talk about all the people he hacked off, I mean, everybody from the mafia to the military, you mentioned the Bay of Pigs, to the CIA, and I mean, if we didn't have, I'm sure everybody knows about this, but the official name of this film is called the Zapruder film. If we did not have the Zapruder film, which is the only taped thing that we have of JFK's assassination, you can watch that film frame. I mean, they actually had, and there's been tons of guys who have poured over this, and I've watched more than my fair share of analysis of the film. ABC. And I actually show this to some of my classes. ABC went out on a limb back in 2005 when a lot of the JFK stuff was released in 2005, and ABC went out on this limb to substantiate the Warren Commission's thing that there was only one shooter. And you can when you watch the Zapruder film, okay. And if you haven't, I mean, if you've got a strong stomach and you can handle it, you watch a Zapruder film. When JFK is shot, he goes forward, okay, because, the angle at which, the guy who shot JFK,
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Lee Harvey Oswald, thank you. Lee Harvey Oswald was up in the Texas Book Depository. At the angle he was shooting at, okay, yeah, you go forward. But then your head comes back and to the left, and your brains go out the back of the Cadillac. Okay? JFK rode in an open car. And when you've seen the president today, how many times do you see the president riding in any open vehicle?
Well, after that, never.
Well, yeah, and I'm just like, you can't. you can't expect me to say, okay, that one guy was able, so he's able to defy the law of physics and fire a bullet that, you know, magically ricochets or whatever and comes back and no. So I'm not one of those guys who believes in the one shooter. I had a fantastic teacher in high school and in middle school, history teachers who said, you know, question everything. Question when when it comes to stuff like this, you always question. I mean, because there's always, you know, a dark hand. But yeah, that would be the one that I would go with, Sean.
Well, wasn't there?
Did you know that?
You talked about they had released some stuff back in '05 about it, but wasn't there some documents recently?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like a couple of years ago, talking about how
Yeah,
Lee
Trump
Harvey
actually
Oswald,
released a couple.
Yeah, he had like, I guess Lee Harvey Oswald had like connections from like Cuba, or
He had.
there was something that came out. It was
So
made people really question
yeah,
everything that had happened.
Yeah, Lee was actually a really interesting character, and I want to say it was. And do I have this wrong? Am I thinking of the right guy? He spent quite a time in Russia.
Yes, he did.
He was an individual
so,
that
yes.
So he was like, he loved the Communist Party.
Yes, he did.
Like, but what's kind of funny was he loved it, and then he went and lived it, and it sucked so bad he came back to America
with a
but
Russian bride.
Still loved the Communist Party.
With a Russian bride.
Yes, who hated it. Who
hated him.
Was not a fan of Lee Harvey Oswald.
She hated him. They had a kid. They had a kid.
She wanted to go.
Yeah, she had a kid with him too.
Yeah. Yeah. Lee was, and if God, I want to say, and if I'm not mistaken, Lee was pretty. He spent some time in the military, and that was part of the whole thing. Was like, while he was in, just kept talking about how, like, oh, you know, this sucks. You know, I want to be a part of Mother Russia and join the Communist Party, and everyone just kind of looked at him like, oh, that's all Lee Harvey. Like, you know, he's just kind of a whack job, alcoholic that kind of was just like, you know, out of his mind. I always think one of the craziest, like, subtle calmnesses about Lee is after he actually assassinated the president, was that on his way out, he stopped, bought a Coca-Cola from the vending machine, and then had a conversation with a police officer inside the textbook depository where he was at before he left, and got on a bus. What's crazy is the president was trying to make a statement by riding around in the coverless vehicle, was because he was not liked in the Dallas region. Actually, he is quoted saying the night before his assassination, let me make sure I get it right. Before he was leaving for Dallas, the night before, he remarked to his wife, you know, last night would have been a hell of a night to assassinate a president, as they left a reference because they were in a motorcade in Fort Worth the night before. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a really interesting thing. And then like Andy has said, all kinds of different conspiracies and thoughts on the CIA's involvement.
What Trump released was 18,000 remaining CIA records. Yeah. Wow. And there would be, and with just 1% of the material left redacted. Holy cow. And then
Travis, was there anything?
Wow.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the National. So you can go to the National Archive. This is a massive file. Holy cow!
It's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh, you couldn't. I don't think you could read through this 20 pages an hour and be done in 10 years. Holy cow! Go ahead, Travis. Oh man.
Travis, was there any thoughts about anything that you might think, or any conspiracies that float around in your head from time to time?
Well, there's a lot. It's how deep do we want to go down the rabbit hole?
We got a few. We got a few minutes. We're good.
Okay, so I'm sure everyone's seen recently the coverage of UFOs recently, and the
now we're
government
barking.
officially
Now we're
coming
going.
out and acknowledging that, hey, these are unidentified objects. We do not know what this is about. We're actually investigating this and trying to figure it out. But it's the first time they're actually coming out and acknowledging it, and I
So this is
it
this is
really
where I
makes
kind of
you,
wanted
yeah. Go
to
ahead.
dive in tonight, because we're at a very interesting time, uh, and this is going to be the sci-fi geek conspiracy nerd in me. But in modern history, okay, the most recorded UFO sightings. Anyone want to take a guess when they took place?
I don't know.
Right after World War II, after we nuked Japan. After that bombing between the mid 40s to the late 1950s, were during that chunk of time were like the most regularly occurring UFO sightings repeatedly. Now
I
there
didn't
has
know
been
that.
a spike, a large spike in UFO sightings in the last half decade, have been through the roof. Here's the thought. This is the conversation that I was thinking. If, and let's just say if, because there's one more likely option, one way out there option. The one more likely option is these UFOs are more than likely another nation's technology. But where it gets crazy is this would make a lot of this technologies that we're seeing in the Tic Tac videos and the recent videos that were shared just off like 60 meters away from a U.S. naval destroyer ship. I don't know if you guys had seen that video that was literally shared like a week ago of unidentified flying objects that were caught. Caught on camera. These videos have now leaked, and the Pentagon has now again said, yes, these are also in our classified files that we list as we don't know what they are, and we're doing an investigation on them. Of these unidentified flying objects, they typically happen around the time that nuclear war is either happening or pending. Now, if these were foreign enemy, if this was foreign enemy technology, it is way beyond the stuff that we have. Okay, which should make people nervous. If this kind of technology is able to get this close to our naval fleet, to our aerospace, to fly above land, where our own government can't tell us what they are, like they're clearly stating, like, we have no idea what these are. And that could even be the government saying, like, oh, we just don't know what they are. But the thing is how they simply just defy the law of physics what really blows.
If you
I'm
listen to
watching,
these naval
I'm watching
pilots,
it right now.
these pilots discuss like the stuff they see and like just how sheer like the speed
these
that
things
things move and like
these
what
things
they
are
do.
moving.
It's like,
well, and
there's
here's
no
one thing about it.
technology that we know of that can do that.
A lot of people talk about how they could be drones, but a lot of these ships are going into water and then back out at a rate. And like a big thing that these naval pilots are talking about is how these crafts are leaving disturbances in water, but not like propulsion would, like a jet would leave like a stream, a ripple. It's almost like a singular leap, almost like a boom is coming and disturbing this water when these vehicles are flying, stopping mid-air, going into the water, and then back up.
I'm watching that. That is the exact video I'm watching right now, Sean. They're showing it going into the water, going under the water.
This was the one from a week ago?
Yeah, so it's going under
I gotta watch this.
It's going under the I'm watching it right now as it's going under the water, and this is going at a good clip too. This is going at a real good clip. It's staying underwater for quite a bit of time. I mean, they're definitely. I'm surprised that, and now it's coming up out of the water. That is, wow.
And here's the thing:
that's amazing.
If that is technology that belongs to another nation,
we're in trouble.
We're in trouble.
We're in trouble.
Wow.
Now here is the more out there theory. Let's hypothetically say these unidentified flying objects are, and I'm gonna have to look up the name because it's funny because the government, like the Pentagon, won't address them as UFOs. They're calling them something else. I think it's like unidentified. I think it's UAPs. They're calling them UAPs, which is stands for unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Yeah,
is what they're calling them. But my take of it, if it's unworldly, we're seeing more activity from UFOs when there is either a pending nuclear war or nuclear war has started. The theory behind it being, if these aliens, if they are aliens, know that we are here, right? They don't want us to blow ourselves to smithereens. So I think that these trips here are kind of some wellness checks to really kind of see what's going on, to either put a stop to war or figure out what they can do. That was one of the conspiracy. Yeah, jump in.
So this is the official Pentagon UFO, and you said UAP. And this is the representative. They don't give the guy's name. I can confirm that the reference photos and videos were taken by Navy personnel. The UAPTF, the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, has included these incidents in their ongoing examinations. That's the extent of their, and they show some of these. They actually have some color ones, some daytime photos of this. It looks like it's like a pyramid shaped UFO looking thing. I mean, that's pretty. I mean, that's pretty,
yeah.
That's definitely.
That was actually one of the funny things. An old quote from like one of the back in the 40s when people talk about flying saucers is this is just a little bit of UFO nerdism right here, but he actually didn't say that he saw a flying saucer. He said that he saw a triangular-like object flying in a saucer-like pattern. So that's where the flying saucer came from, of like they're round, they're circular. But if you actually look at a lot of found footage of alleged UFOs, of ones that are real, like genuine, like what is that kind of thing, you'll be surprised at how many of them are triangular in shape. It is. A lot of them are triangular.
Well, I'll take this a little bit. We could, again, like Travis said, we can go really deep in the wormhole, but we are running out of time. But
I know.
So let me just put this from a historical standpoint, and this is the nerdism. This is the history nerd in me coming out. Okay, so you look at 4 ancient civilizations, miles apart.
Here we go.
Okay. So you have the Egyptians, you have the Mayans, the Aztecs, and the Incas. Okay, all of their worship places, all built in a triangular shape, pyramid format, one way or the other. Okay, all you're talking. So Egyptian 33,000 BC. Mayans, 1,000 BC to in that neighborhood. And then you had your Incas and your Aztecs were the ones who were until the Spanish came, and everything that these guys had. I mean, you look at to me, I mean, the pyramids themselves. You can say we did an ancient civ. We always did a Travis. I remember you being in there. You were in that ancient civ class. Where there was only like 4 kids in that ancient civ class. But we looked at the sheer tonnage of what was used to put these pyramids on their and that there's not. And here's the other thing: not 1 ounce of cement or concrete used anywhere on that thing. Still to this day, and they've withstood they've withstood sandstorms. They've withstood that is just, and I mean to the precision. To every one of those stones were cut to a 16th of an inch. To a 16th of an inch. You can't. I mean, how does that? And then you get to the Aztecs and the Mayans, and the same kind of, just the same kind of I want to say masonry that goes into making it. That to me, I'm like, come on. There's. I mean, those guys were smart, but let's be honest here. That's over 5,000 years ago. How are you building that kind of stuff with no technology, no cranes, no anything?
So what are you supposing?
My official historical standpoint. Okay, the interesting thing about this is in the capstone on top of one of the pyramids, and they've actually been able to get up into its King Tut's tomb. In the very top, in the pinnacle, there's actually Hebrew writing up in the top, which that goes to the theory that the majority of the pyramids were built by the Jews. But I don't know. To me, there's too many common. When you look at all of those civilizations, they all worshipped a sun-like being. They said they worshipped the sun. They worshipped a sun-like being. Okay, all 4 of those civilizations, they all worshipped. It was all focused on the sun, or this, what they thought was the sun. This bright, what some, and this is where some of the guys in the conspiracy community say it was some kind of glowing object in the sky, that it wasn't necessarily the sun. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that can just really...
I think one of the interesting things, especially with like ancient civilizations, that it always comes around to are the amount of like scribes, and whether it's hieroglyphics or whatever it might be, of the same deities, the same exact deities on, in civilizations where they never met. They never crossed paths.
Had no way.
And a lot of them often talk about how, these temples were built for said individuals. And a lot of them too, if I'm not mistaken, like talk about how these people came from the stars, how they literally came from the stars and were there. So this is actually one of the funny things I saw on this old cheesy documentary, but they brought up this point that I actually did find very interesting. This one specifically, and again, we won't go down the rabbit hole too deep, but it was about mermaids, right? This one was specifically about mermaids. However, it pulled together, like you had said just a minute ago, with the pyramids and the similarities. It pulled these same exact stories and descriptions of people from the sea, and these were people that were Nordic, that had these stories. These were people that were in South America. These were people that were in Africa, that gave the same description on these individuals from the sea that didn't speak English, but they were, these were the same exact stories, same exact descriptions, different generations of people across different parts of the planet. There's always just going to be those little silly things.
I will tell you that there's, and you're delving into a region that my daughter fascinates upon, because I'll walk in on her and she's watching these mermaid videos on YouTube that go on what you just talked about. I mean, sightings and stuff. I'm just like, all these ancient manuscripts of people, swearing that this is what they witnessed, this is what they saw, this is,
There was one I saw recently about a sighting in Alaska.
Really?
Something like this, yeah. But
I mean,
yeah,
there's all those things. I mean, it's like, okay, what do we know about, you could go. I mean, we're definitely going to need to explore this. I mean, local legend. Was it Momo the monster up in Louisiana?
Momo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and then I mean, I have a lady who I used to go to church with, and she grew up in Louisiana, and they grew up she grew up in the country, and this woman is one of these women who, I mean, she's as straight as an arrow. She's not a loose. I mean, and she swore to me when she helped out with our youth group for the longest time, and she told me, she said, "Look," she said, "you can laugh at me if you want, but she said, when I was 16 years old, me and some friends were out, camping, and we saw this creature that it was." She said, "We saw it from a distance, and it wasn't a bear. It was." She's like, and she swore to me. She said that was Momo the monster, and she said she said it was a Bigfoot like creature, and she swore to me that she'd saw it. So, yeah,
This is something we're gonna have to revisit. Like, I got so much more I want to add, but it's gonna add at least another hour to this. And
we definitely should, because
so.
I wanna close it out with, I just encourage for those that are listening, and I encourage you guys to look it up too. There's two individuals that I'll very briefly talk about, but are super important when it comes to today's talk about UFO specifically. Is former Nevada Senator Harry Reid. Okay. If that name doesn't ring a bell, this was a major leader of the Democratic Party for a long time. This was a major player in the game for the Democratic Party. Has now since retired as 81. Has claimed, okay, this is now, again, mind you, the second that this individual then talks like this, they're crazy, woohoo, off the rocker kind of thing. Has claimed that defense contractor, and this would make sense, Lockheed Martin, has fragments of a crashed UFO in its possession.
What?
Very interesting. And that was like 10 days ago. This was really recent. I'm that he has claimed. Yeah. And again, he was told that the Pentagon would not approve him to actually look at the stuff, but there was actual discussions like with him, kind of like one of those nonchalant things, like, yeah, there's things there, but you don't need to see them. And this was, this was a senator.
Let me read this quote.
Throw in there, yeah.
So here's his quote. "I was told for decades that Lockheed had some of these retrieved materials. The Democrat told the media outlet, and I tried to get, as I recall, a classified approval by the Pentagon to have me go look at the stuff. They would not approve that. I don't know what all the numbers were, what kind of classifications it was, but they would not give that to me." Wow. Jeez.
Yeah. And the other name I encourage you guys to look up, just because it's very interesting. And this guy is either the biggest truth teller or is easily the best storyteller of all time, but is an individual. He was a UFO whistleblower named Bob Lazar.
Yes. Yep. Bob Lazar. Yes. Yep.
Yes. So for those that don't know, Bob Lazar was an individual that worked at a place called Los Alamos. Had allegedly went to like MIT. Basically, long story short, had worked on UFOs, or had claimed to have worked on UFOs, and then was underwritten by the government, like the CIA. The FBI raided his house on multiple occasions. That is true. They actually were, while filming a documentary about him, they have it on cameras of the FBI. Like, he is calling the director, and the FBI literally is raiding his house while he's speaking with this guy. It is a wild thing. But he had claimed to have worked on UFOs. The government denied it, said he didn't even work there, that this did not exist. And then the proof in the pudding came out that leaked documents showed that he did work at Los Alamos. And now they were just like, oh, well, that's crazy, I guess.
He claims
that is
yeah,
literally just barely scratching the surface.
yeah. Bob Lazar has a lengthy. I mean, there's ton when it's Lazar. When you look him up, I mean, he's not some kook guy with. I mean, this is and he is, and according to this site, he's still alive too. So he is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
he was on Rogan not too long ago.
Master's degree from MIT and a master's degree in electronic technology from Caltech. Oh my gosh! So he's MIT and Caltech. He worked for Nellis Air Force Base. A physicist at Los Alamos Nelson Physics Facility, Los Alamos National Laboratory. Yeah, he's got quite a. Yeah, he does have
quite the kind of resume you'd want to be working on UFOs.
He was, yeah, and this also, so it looks like he was thrown into the bus a couple times for aiding and abetting a prostitution ring. I'm sure that was convenient too. So wow, yeah, yeah. So I want to go ahead and give a quick plug too before we get off. Apologies, I know we dropped a lot of hints about what we were going to talk about this week. I'll just go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. Share it with your friends. We are going to be discussing the minimum wage monster next week. We are going to have a guest of mine he's a friend of mine from college, and he has never been afraid to call me out. He might be Sean Phillips' long lost brother. When it comes to a sense of humor, and you guys are really going to enjoy this guy when he comes on. We were going to try to do that this week, but the guest that we had lined up kind of didn't feel comfortable with it, and we totally understood that. And so we were going to do that this week. So sorry for those of you who were thinking we were going to talk about this week, but we are going to be discussing the minimum wage monster. I am going to try to post some polls out this week on our site. Please take part in our poll. Take some part in our polls. The more, the merrier. We can get some stats on that, and me and Sean and Travis will share it to our own personal pages, so you guys can get links to that if you don't follow us on our Facebook page. But I'm going to try to put those out either tomorrow or Wednesday. So please vote on those. It'll just be some random questions, and I'm sure the boys will probably come up with some other questions they might want to ask. But this has been one of those, I don't want to say demons, but it is a demon that it's hard to get people to talk about this because all three of us kind of have the same, this is one of those issues that all three of us kind of are in line with, but we want to get somebody from the other side. And my friend who's coming in is actually, I mean, he's just a common Joe like the rest of us, and he doesn't work in but he definitely has a different take on things when it comes to minimum wage. And so we'll have some good laughs with him, but we'll also have some good serious talk, and we're looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, I definitely next week also, even if it's short, want to talk a little bit about the incident that is going on in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. Conflict is getting very, very, very hot and heavy. So I will definitely, the week unravels with more information and more news, and hopefully not as much violence. We'll definitely talk a little bit about that as well. So Travis, Andy, is there anything you guys would like to say to our viewers before we sign on out?
Thank you for everybody. We had a lot of folks get in and out tonight, and we had a lot of, sorry we didn't get to all the comment. We have actually a ton of comments here, but we didn't get to tonight. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, my phone is locked up. I missed them.
Sorry, guys. But yes, please, really, we really invite you guys. We get a lot of shares and a lot of listens during the week. And sorry we're a little bit late tonight, but yeah, look forward to next week too.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, everyone, again, thank you guys so much. I can't wait to talk to you guys next week. Make sure you guys give us a listen, whether it's on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, right here on Facebook. Thank you all so much for joining us for the Voice of Reason podcast. We can't wait to talk to you guys next week. My name is Sean, alongside my two co-hosts, Andy and Travis, and we will talk to you guys next time.